Let's consider the fascinating chronology of events related to the appearance and development of our planet. Let's look at 10 minutes of interesting moments, starting from the distant past, more than 5 billion years ago. In that distant period, when the Earth was just beginning to form, a new star, our Sun, was born around it. There were still no traces of the planet that would become our home. But at that moment, the cosmic dust scattered in space began to slowly merge. Tiny stones slowly began to form from this dust. This amazing process developed over many millions of years under the influence of gravity, which gathered material together. 4.5 billion years have passed, and our planet has begun to acquire the shape of an ellipsoid, close to a sphere. But at that time, the Earth was a layer of fire. The temperature of the surface exceeded 1200 degrees Celsius. The only gases surrounding it were carbon dioxide and nitrogen, not providing vital air. The Earth consisted of liquid lava, and there were no solid formations on its surface. And at the same time, an amazing event happened. A young planet named Dia, similar in age to the Earth, suddenly moved in the direction of our planet. Its speed was amazing, about 15 kilometers per second. A planet comparable in size to Mars was rapidly approaching the Earth. A full-scale collision took place in just 1,000 years, and as a result, a ring was formed around the Earth, similar to what can be seen on Saturn. Eventually, after a certain time, a layer with a diameter of approximately 3,000 kilometers appeared from this ring. This is how our satellite, the Moon, began to form. At that moment, the Moon was much closer to the Earth than it is now, due to the collision. The rotation of the Earth was much faster, and the day lasted only 6 hours. After 600 million years, meteorites began to fall from the young Earth in huge quantities. All of them were formed during the formation of the solar system and contained a small amount of water. For 20 million years, these meteorites continued to fall to Earth, launching a long series of attacks on the planet. As a result of this steady bombardment, reservoirs began to appear on Earth. The temperature on the planet cooled to 70 degrees Celsius. However, despite the cooling of the surface, the inner core of the Earth remained hot due to the accumulation of a large amount of water and lava. As a result of this process, the surface of the planet began to be covered with crust, which later received the name crust. The water that we see on Earth today and that we use is of extraterrestrial origin. The age of this water is measured in millions and millions of years. Due to the powerful attraction of the Moon, which was located at a relatively close distance from the Earth, the oceans were kept in a raging state with incredible force for many millions of years. As the Moon gradually receded, the seas and oceans calmed and the Earth's rotation slowed. 700 million years after its formation, the planet was covered by oceans, and only small islands occasionally rose above the surface. At that moment, when the lava had not yet completely cooled, it began to break through the water and solidify, forming islands. These islands were called volcanic because of their origin. 3 billion years later, the planet took on a more similar appearance, and meteorites continued to fall to Earth. These meteorites, in addition to water, brought various chemical substances into the ocean, which are formed when they come in contact with water and other substances. These substances stimulated a variety of chemical reactions that resulted in microscopic living things, such as unicellular bacteria. It was this moment that became a turning point in the history of our planet, the appearance of life. However, For hundreds of millions of years, unicellular bacteria remained practically unchanged. However, colonies such as stromatolites, underwater formations capable of absorbing sunlight through the process of photosynthesis and converting carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and glucose, gradually began to form from them. Thus, without the participation of stromatolites, life on Earth would probably never have appeared. Another 2 billion years pass, and the oxygen level in the atmosphere continues to rise. The Earth's rotation slows down, which entails an increase in the length of days. 1.5 billion years ago, when the planet had already created most of the conditions for the development of life, the fiery core of the Earth and the lava located underwater bring new surprises. From underwater igneous plates, they begin to split, rising above the surface of the water and forming future continents. While these areas, carrying only potential, remained practically lifeless, resembling the surface of Mars. However, almost everything was ready for the next stage in the Earth's history, the evolution of life. Volcanic activity soon followed. The planet was breaking into pot, forming new continents. Carbon dioxide emitted by the Earth mixed with water, causing the formation of acid rain. This rain was absorbed by rocks, so many modern rocks contain carbon dioxide. Climate change was inevitable. The temperature began to drop, reaching 50 degrees Celsius, and our planet was covered with ice, the thickness of which reached 3 kilometers. At this time, sunlight and heat were reflected from the Earth's surface back into space, and the atmosphere was shrouded in permafrost. However, this ice age did not last forever. The Earth's core continued to emit heat. Volcanoes sprang up on the surface and emitted carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Over the course of thousands of years, this gas was absorbed into the rocks, and the atmosphere gradually began to create a warm blanket over the Earth's surface, thanks to which the islands became habitable zones. For 15 million years, a struggle between heat and cold broke out, and finally the ice began to melt. Under the influence of chemical reactions between the ice and the sun, the oxygen level continued to rise. During the last 600 million years to our time, the air temperature has become similar to the current one. As a result of the Ice Age, most bacteria died, leaving only those that lived on the bottom of the ocean. About 540 million years ago, these bacteria began to evolve thanks to the high level of oxygen in the ocean. The first mollusks arose from them, which gradually began to develop and form internal bone skeletons. In this period, the first worms, sponges, and trilobites also appeared, the ancient ancestors of the first insects and us. They looked like mollusk monsters that became predators on Earth and preyed mainly on trilobites. Many different plants and animals began to actively flourish in the oceans. Nevertheless, all these organisms were complex, but so far they could not live on land. The land was completely rocky and devoid of signs of life, mainly due to radiation emanating from the sun. Over time, another fantastic phenomenon occurred. Oxygen coming out of the ocean began to react with radiation and turn into a new gas, ozone. Ozone began to form a layer in the atmosphere, which began to absorb deadly radiation. This process continued for 120 million years, and the ozone layer became so dense that it stopped transmitting radiation to the Earth's surface. After 375 million years ago, the first plants began to appear, which also began to release oxygen. At that time, Some of the first fish appeared, using their fins as paths. They slowly came out of the water where there was a lot of terrestrial vegetation. Over time, this fish turned into a four-legged terrestrial inhabitant, developing powerful limbs. 360 million years have passed since the beginning of the migration of living creatures from the sea to the land. This led to the appearance of dinosaurs, birds, and mammals. At this time, flies and giant ferns also began to cover the earth, creating forests and jungles that stretched into endless spaces.